once in a while, a blog post or a book gets written indicating that there are parents out there who feel like they made the worst decision of their lives by deciding to have children. And recently, there was this insanely good piece in The Guardian where a reporter by the name of Stephanie Marsh spoke to a number of different people who openly and transparently talk about how they regret having kids. Now, what do you think about that? Some people, of course, push back on this notion and criticize and ridicule them. Others, on the other hand, feel a sense of relief because they're going through the same thing and they thought they were alone. So let me give you the details on some of these individuals. So there's this one woman named Victoria Elder who actually responded to a question on this website called Quora. Quora is where people ask a question and then people online try to answer it to the best of their abilities. And the question was, what's it like to regret having children? She responded with the following answer. I planned my pregnancy and I thought I desperately wanted a baby, desperate enough that I married the first man who was interested in having a child with me, knowing in the back of my mind that I was making a bad decision, but thinking I was strong enough to do this. The day her daughter was born, the exact moment the tiny baby was placed in her arms, she said, I felt like, I still feel like I made a mistake.
Damn, that's heavy.
Yeah, so she didn't hide her name in the post, and she was just openly talking about what she went through. And of course she got hate. Some people told her to commit to psychotherapy. Others said, take it from a child of an anxious, self-centered, narcissistic psychopath mother. Your daughter may seem unaffected by your bad choices, but trust me, she's been affected.
Yeah.
So people, of course, criticized her quite a bit.
So at some point that kid's gonna grow up and read that, so that's a little problematic. I wish she'd hidden her name, but I mean, I like the guts of being able to say things that people are going to criticize and to spark conversation, because it's such a forbidden topic, like that you're a monster if you say it, but a lot of people are thinking it, and we should have an open discussion about it so people make the right decisions, which doesn't mean don't have kids. It means some people will love kids. I love my kids. I think it's the greatest decision I made. And some people not so much, and you should be aware of all the consequences and make the right decision for you.
Oh, I think women like Victoria Elder are heroes for people like me. And the reason why I say that is because having children is not a decision that I take lightly, and I like to weigh the pros and cons of everything before I commit, right? And so you can make decisions in your life and then correct the course if you feel like you're going in the wrong direction. But once you have a kid, you have a kid. You can't change that, right? And so that's a responsibility and a commitment that you have to deal with for the rest of your life. And I really appreciate people who kind of break the mold and share the truth about this romanticized image of having kids. So, by the way, Victoria Elder's daughter is actually 18 years old now. And the reporter...
So she just read it now.
No, well, the reporter at The Guardian spoke to her, and I think her daughter pretty much understands what her mom means. Her mom loves her a lot. And it has nothing to do with the daughter. It has everything to do with how much a mother's life or a parent's life has changed, because you give up and sacrifice a lot just so you can take care of this kid. So let me give you some more. There's a Facebook group that's called I Regret Having Children.
Jesus.
This page is here to let all the mothers and fathers know that regretting having kids is not abnormal and shouldn't be a taboo subject. Okay, so the group has...
This group is not keeping it 100. It's keeping it 1,000.
They are. So the group has about 5,800 followers. They talk of parenting plus depression, debt, extreme stress. It is of not being able to relate to your children.
So some folks feel like monsters if they can't immediately fall madly in love with their kids the minute they're born. Like the movies and all of society tells you the minute they put the kids into your arms, you're supposed to be like, what's it like? I have never felt a love like this. And for some of us that does happen, maybe not necessarily that exact moment, but for people who it doesn't happen to, which is a lot of people, they're like, wait, is there something wrong with me? Am I a monster? And so sometimes that happens when the kid's born, sometimes it's 6 months, sometimes it's never. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't make you a monster, it's just that's who you are, and that's okay.
And also, there are so many factors at play. Obviously, postpartum depression has a lot to do with whether or not a mother can bond with the child. I mean, they're depressed, and that happens to a lot of women, so that's normal. There's also the issue of not realizing ahead of time that you are going to sacrifice a lot, whether it's your career, your free time, your body, whatever it is, right? And again, you go on Instagram. I know I complain about Instagram a lot, okay? But these new moms on Instagram, it's like, oh my God, I just had a kid like 2 hours ago. Look at my abs. Look at my abs. And it's like, come on. And so
Wait,
people,
so who's that?
so people look at that and they think, oh, yeah, I'm gonna pop this baby out, everything's gonna be fine. But for the vast majority of women, they don't have abs before they have the baby, they don't have the abs after they have the baby, they just don't have the abs. You know what I'm saying?
I can't relate.
Yeah, get out of here. Okay, so more, I wanna give you more. Here is a father's post that I think is fascinating. I have an almost 5-year-old girl, she is amazing. I spent her first 4 years regretting having her. Wow. Seeing all my single friends or married friends without children made me jealous. It's like I died and lost my previous life. I entered a new life with much less joy, sex, sleep, fun. I do wish people would talk more about it openly. Thank you, real people who are true to their feelings. I believe most parents suffer, but they stay quiet with a fake smile.
So you do have to keep it real. Even if you love your kids and don't regret it for 1 second, it's still a giant responsibility. Your life is definitely different than it used to be. I mean, you got to take care of a whole nother human being. Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
They can't take care of themselves for a long time. You've got to tend to every poop, every crying thing, every time they're hungry. You are responsible for every part of them. And so some folks do it a little bit more equitably, but let's keep it real. The moms are burdened with that so much more.
Yes, and that was covered here, where there was a woman who didn't really want to have kids. She was 38. She had has a husband that she loves deeply, and her husband wanted to have a kid. And she's like, okay, he wants to have a child, and I love him, so I'll make it work. Fine, we'll have one baby. And they had agreed ahead of time that they would split the parenting 50-50. And she's like, oh, God, I was so naive.
Totally naive.
Because her friends had warned her ahead of time, look, it doesn't matter how progressive your household is. No matter what, no matter how hard you try, things tend to fall back into traditional gender roles inside the household, and that's essentially what happened to her. Also, I want to read a quote that she also gave about why she hates parenting so much. I'd never failed at anything before. I traveled to 180 countries. I'd almost died of dehydration in a jungle in Madagascar. I'd been on a sailing boat in the Indian Ocean that had been attacked by pirates. I'd almost died from food poisoning in Turkmenistan. What happened over the next few years, I couldn't have imagined in my worst nightmares. I felt like I was in a plot in a crime book where the woman is being suffocated by motherhood.
And these people are keeping it too real.
Hold on, one final quote. The reality of motherhood is incontinence, boredom, weight gain, saggy breasts, depression, the end of romance, lack of sleep, dumbing down, career downturn, loss of sex drive, poverty, exhaustion, and lack of fulfillment. Oh my God.
God.
Okay, that is such an important perspective to share because people like me need to know. Like, this is the other side, okay? One side is the sexy Instagram mom with the six-pack. The other side is what?
That's not even a real side. No, the other side is that connection to another human being and a feeling that if you're lucky enough to experience it, is truly unlike any other feeling you've ever felt. And this love and this connection that until you, and I feel terrible saying this because it's like such a cheesy thing and the kind of thing you'd hear, and I would get annoyed when I heard it, but it's true. A feeling I never felt before. And the best argument my wife ever made was, hey, because I was unsure about whether we should have kids. She said, you want to experience all of life and you care deeply about it. And that's part of the reason why you're concerned about having kids, because you won't get to do as much if we have kids. That's true, and we knew that. We knew that going in. But she said, well, part of experiencing life is experiencing having a kid. Mm-hmm. And if you've never lived that, have you really lived life? And it was such a great point, and she was absolutely right. And I've loved it. Now, that's the other side, not the stupid mom with the abs. Who cares about her, right? Yeah. But having said that, there is a price, man. There is a price. And women, you got to be realistic about it, because even in my relationship, where we both have been working for most of our marriage, she made more money than I did when we first got married. She was a social worker. That's it. I made very, very little money, and so she carried us for a while. But then when she got pregnant, I carried us, but she had to take care of the kid in the beginning, the kids, and now she's back as a full-time therapist. But man, so I would come home and I'd change on the weekends. I might change like 4 diapers in a row, and I'm going around like I'm fucking Rocky.
But
I'm like, yes, look
on.
at me, what a great dad I am. She's like, I just changed 40 diapers in a row, right?
No, you just made a really great point, because you'll feel like a champion, but society will also look at you as a champion. Whereas, people will look at you and be like, oh, he's such a good dad. He changed a diaper like once a week. But for women, it's more about like ridiculing them or criticizing them if they're not doing a perfect job raising their kids. So there's also that double standard, right? There's a lot of judgment toward the mom and a lot of like applause and congratulations toward the dad.
Yeah, the bar is set so low for dads.
Yeah.
Like, as long as you're there and you're not a maniac, and every once in a while you chip in, everybody's like, pat on the back, big guy. Way to be. You even like your kids. Right? And for moms, if you're not juggling 3 diapers at a time, they're like, what's wrong with you? Don't you love your kids? It is a totally different standard, and it's totally unfair, but it's real. And not that it should be, but it is. And so just be mindful of it. Just make an informed decision. I have friends who have kids who the greatest decision they've ever made. And I have friends who never had kids, and they're ecstatic. They travel the world. They work together. They're in Paris for 6 weeks, and they work online. I'm like, oh my God, that's such a great life, right? So it depends on what floats your boat, but at least know all the information. So even though these people are keeping it too real, we have the shirt Too Strong.
Yeah.
Maybe we should make one for them, Too Real. But at least they're letting you know the other side.
Yes.
And that is something you should know. Let's put some watchers on the wall. Investigative journalists to run down the Trump administration and the establishment. You can make that happen. tytnetwork.com/go.